This is the Lady Raider Report, your weekly look at Texas Tech women's basketball from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.
Time now for this week's edition of the Lady Raider Report, brought to you by DoubleTSportsNetwork.com. Lady Raiders stay perfect with 2 wins this week. They're now 4-0 on the season. Chuck, you get a 75-68 win over New Mexico on Tuesday. Then you come back with a 56-52 win over Washington State on Saturday. Tell us about the week that was for these Lady Raiders.
Well, I think first, anytime you play New Mexico, you know you're playing a highly motivated team. I mean, it just seems like whatever Texas Tech plays New Mexico in anything, they really take it serious. I mean, they take all these games serious, but it just gets amped up a little bit more. So you know that coming in. And Destiny Hooks, man, the Lady Raiders just never have any answers for her because she dribble penetrated. She led everybody with 28 points. And they had 2 others that had 10, but still it was the Destiny Hooks show. And for the Lady Raiders, it was about what you did in the second half, especially what Jasmine Shavers did in the second half, because she had all 18 of her points in the second half, and Bailey Maupin contributed 10. You had 10 from Sarah Sonogo and then 10 from Logan Johnson. And Sonogo continues to be just person that I think every week kind of gets a little bit better with every game, gets a little bit better, gets even more comfortable, because in the New Mexico game she had 4 block shots and 4 drawn fouls and scored 10 points. The other thing that you did is you scored points in the paint. You got 32 points in the paint against New Mexico on Saturday, on Tuesday, and then you go on to win the ball game 75-60. Could never really put them away. You trailed after 1, and then you came back and had a much better second quarter. But it just seems like shooting has been a little bit of a challenge for the Lady Raiders, especially beyond the arc, because they were 7 of 28 in that game.
Yeah, so in that game on Tuesday, you mentioned it, Chuck, 4 different players in double figures. We've seen the Lady Raiders so far this year kind of get off to slow starts, and that's really what we saw in that game as well. In the second half, both Jasmine and Bailey really picked up their offensive game, and that was huge for the Lady Raiders. What do you feel like they can do to kind of get kick-started a little bit earlier? What is Coach Gerlich trying to do to get them going?
I think she wants those 2 scorers to come out and score, and try to create and lead and try to create some opportunities for them. And maybe the offense isn't moving, so they've got to move. So I don't know if they're coming out with their brains full or what the deal is, Jamie. But scoring in the first quarter would be helpful, and maybe sometimes it's just simple as just getting that early scoring so you get your confidence up, because they just haven't been able to do that yet in the first quarter.
Well, there's no question when great players or leaders of teams get going early on, it kind of eases everybody else back into it, right? It doesn't force them to feel like there's pressure on them when they're on the court. And so you probably do need those two girls that have been great for you the last couple of seasons, really big for you last year, and they've been big so far this year, but they've not gotten off to great starts, and it probably would benefit everybody if they did. Those 2 players, also the only 2 players in double figures on Saturday when you beat Washington State by 4, and most of their damage came in the fourth quarter for both of them when you had your best offensive quarter. So it's funny, those 2 are the ones that are consistently scoring for you. Those 2 are the ones that are in double figures each game, but you're still kind of looking for a little bit more from them.
Yeah, I think so, and I think probably one of the other problems is kind of going back to the New Mexico game just for a second. Maupin and Shavers combined were 1 of 13 in the first half. And they've been a little bit long or they've been short. So I think part of this too is the scoring early gets their confidence up. And so, going back to Saturday's shoot around before Washington State, Bailey at the end of shoot around and volleyball was coming in to play. So your shoot around time was a little bit different than what it normally is. So it was Saturday morning, and she was taking some extra 3-point shots and struggling with it, not making any shots. And finally she got into a rhythm and finished the shoot around with 3 straight made threes. I'm like, okay, no, maybe you found your shot, but didn't translate to 6 o'clock because Bailey goes 1 of 3 in the first quarter, and she and Jazz both. I mean, they went 2 of 6 in the first quarter. They got 6 shots off, and the team only got 10. And part of the problem on Saturday, at least in the first quarter, was that they were so slow in getting their offense going that the shot clock was down to the waning seconds, and you're taking these wild shots to avoid a shot clock violation. So credit Washington State's defense a little bit, but it was also about you just could not get into the flow of the game early.
Yeah, you have some really good pieces that you've brought into the mix this year, and clearly it's taken a little bit of time for this team really to gel together, to kind of everybody to figure out what their role is. But when you look at the roster and you look at the players on the court individually, they look like, a much more complete roster than you've had in recent years. So there's a lot to be excited about, just waiting for them to really put it together and play together. And that's why you play these non-conference games before the start of Big 12 play, to get things figured out before the games really matter.
Yeah, because what you'd really like to do is put one of these teams away, and where you have a no-doubter pretty quickly. And I think the thing about what you did with New Mexico, you're playing a highly motivated team. Washington State, coached by a gal who was a legend at Monterey High School here, won a gold medal, won a national championship at Texas, and Cammie Etheridge. And obviously she had her team motivated. They came in early to Lubbock to play the Lady Raiders. They were here Thursday for a Saturday game, which is usually unheard of, especially for a non-now Power 5 or Power 4 team. But man, they had some players too. I mean, Eleanor Avila, you couldn't solve her for a while. She had 12 points. They had 10 out of Jenna Villa, and they are not related. They're from different countries. But I think really what happened for the Lady Raiders is you got finally into the ball game in the fourth quarter and put yourself in position, because you were trailing 34-31 after 3. You got down by 7, and then now you're down by 38-33. So roughly, and Coach Gurley calls timeout. You get a 3, and Jazz Shavers finally dials up a 3 from right in front of the bench on the wing, and then Logan Johnson gets a steal and a score, and you tie up the ball game. And then from then on, it was all Lady Raiders.
All right, so through 4 games, Chuck, you're shooting 41% from the floor, 26% from three-point range, and just 68% from the line. So if you're Coach Gerlich, clearly the focus at this point has to be just shooting the ball better.
Yeah, getting shots up, having that shooter's mentality. And she's taught to him about getting your mind right, and then being confident with your shots and things like that. One of the things about Saturday that was kind of frustrating was, and they knew they were going to have this problem with one of the girls that was she's 6'6", but man, she looked 6'8". Her name was Alex Coville. And they had basically said, if she's in the paint, get out of the paint and shoot from the outside, because known as a shot blocker. And then they had another shot blocker named Tara Wallach. Well, what was happening is they were stopping just short of body contact and putting up the shots. Well, now you're either a little off balance or not shooting your usual shot. And so they were short on their shot, or they weren't getting the shot that they wanted in the paint. So finally they said, okay, we know we told you this, but we want you to play physical too. So go at them. And when they started going at them, then they created better shots for themselves, or they got to the free throw line, or they committed fouls, or Washington State committed turnovers, to the point where you get 9 from Shavers in the fourth quarter, 9 of her 13, 7 of Maupin's 11 in the fourth quarter, and 6 of Sunogo's 8 in the fourth quarter. And so really that was the big difference. But I think it's about, you need those girls to become gym rats, and that Womble's available 24/7. Okay,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, feel free to go in and use it.
Yeah, and the interesting part to me is I wouldn't have thought, looking at this roster and looking at the group that you have, that shooting would be the problem for this team.
Sure.
And so the turnovers aren't outrageous at this point, and you would expect some of that with so many new players. It's just a matter of putting the ball in the hoop, and we know shooting is contagious. I mean, it feels like if some girls get going, everybody's going to get going. If your key girls are struggling, it's kind of, that blends off on the rest of the team a little bit. And so hopefully that can change. But on the positive side of things, despite the fact that your offense has not looked great so far, you're giving up just 52 points a game. I think Coach Gerlich would probably be happy with that number. You're forcing 22 turnovers a game. So on the positive side of things, defensively, it looks like a really good start for the squad.
I think so, and I think that she wants to be known as a defensive team. She wants to be known as a defensive coach. She wants her team to be tough, and I think you're seeing some of that, especially and I think Sarah Sunogo brings some of that.
Yes.
Especially with how she's taking the fouls
and changing shots inside, blocking shots inside. giving a team a little bit of fear when they drive the lane, thinking, okay, where is she?
Right.
Is she gonna force me to miss this shot? Absolutely. That's a difference maker, no doubt.
And then Logan Johnson, she does things because she took 5 fouls. She drew 5 fouls the other night against Washington State, and she does things like dives for loose balls and creates tie-up situations so that you have jump balls and you might steal a possession here or there, because she is not afraid to go after the rebounds, not afraid to mix it up. So what you really need is you need your 2 best shooters to shoot, okay, and start making shots, because if they start making shots, then that's going to free things up for other people that maybe aren't as good as shooters, but they might get more open shots or better looks at it. And one of those might be Adley Blacklock, who right now is shooting 28% from 3, but she's not getting the best of looks.
Okay, and that's something that you expect will change as the season goes along. Same thing with Maupin, where her 3-point percentage is right now. Absolutely, you feel like those things will improve. You're just kind of going through this stretch where offensively the ball's just not falling for you. So this week the Lady Raiders will play Abilene Christian on Tuesday at 6, and then they'll take on New Orleans Saturday at 2. They're both home games again, as you can start this season with the 6 home games. Abilene Christian 2-2. They've lost their last 2 games to SFA in North Texas. New Orleans is 0-3. They do have a loss to a ranked Alabama team, Tarleton, and they lost by 55 last Sunday to TCU, 107-52.
Yeah. So Abilene Christian, obviously they'll come in highly motivated. Tatum Weitenheimer, who played for the Lady Raiders, was a grad assistant for the Lady Raiders. She's one of their assistant coaches. So they always come in. They want to come in and win because it'd be a nice little notch for them to knock off a team like Texas Tech, and so you're going to have to guard against that. They have a ton of transfers. They have a bunch of kids back. They have some athletic kids. The big one to watch out for is Bella Earl. She's a returning starter for them. She averages 17.5 a game, almost 8 rebounds a game, but she turns it over a lot. She's turned it over 19 times. And then the other one to watch out for is Peyton Hull. She also is a returner. She's from Peaster. She's a gal that averages 15.5 a game, almost 4 rebounds a game, and can provide heavy on the assists as well. So, I mean, these are 2 teams, obviously, that you expect to win against, and then it gets tougher after that because you're headed to the Virgin Islands, where you'll play Florida State in your first game on Thanksgiving. Then you play Gonzaga and Missouri State. So you play 3 games in the period of 3 days there.
So just wanting to keep the positive momentum going at this point. Really like to see that offense get going before you make that trip to the Virgin Island, knowing that you're going to play tougher opponents there. And that's got, you would think, for Coach Gerlich and company, kind of figuring out how to put together the offense and the right mix of girls out there is the key at this point, and to kind of getting them to start playing the way we think they're capable of playing.
Yeah, and I think that she's mentioned this too, that she's trying to work on her rotation, so let their kind of offense kind of get more into a rhythm before she makes changes. Part of the problem has been some early foul trouble where you've been forced to take somebody out like a Maupin. But I think more than anything else, just get into a rhythm, get into a flow, and feel good about your offense. Since hey, Maupin and Shavers, you can count on them to be double-digit girls, but you just don't need it to be in the 4th quarter.
Right. A good start for them.
Good start, yes.
And then some others joining them. We've talked a lot about them needing to step up, but there's a lot of other girls on this team that we feel they're more capable of what they're showing so far. They got to figure out what their role is, and they've got to start contributing, and then their minutes will improve.
Absolutely, and I think this is a team that can get better as the season progresses.
Yes, absolutely. I think they're far from peaking at this point. Yeah, no question about that. All right, well, he's Chuck Heinz. I'm Jamie Lent. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Lady Raider Report. We'll have more coming up next week, hopefully, after a couple more losses, and we'll start previewing that.
A couple more wins.
Yeah, a couple more wins. And we'll start previewing that trip to the Virgin Islands for the Lady Raiders, which should be really entertaining games there.
I would think so. Yeah, I would. That's the goal. It's a business trip. You want to have fun, but you want to take care of your business and win some ball games as well.
Come away with some W's.
Yep.
All right, thanks for joining us today from TSportsNetwork.com.
Your weekly deep dive into Texas Tech women's basketball. This is the Lady Raider Report from Double T 97.3 and TSportsNetwork.com.